for Kevin. First, I want to say one of the challenges of working with Kevin is that everyone wants to meet him and sign his book, so we didn't even have time to rehearse. So we're just going to wing it. Let me begin by saying, I don't know if some of you were here, 7, 8 years ago, but it's certainly a delight to welcome Kevin back to the Milken Institute Global Conference stage. This is your second time with us, and my hope that it's won't be another 5 or 6 years before we have you back. But indeed, we first met right about when the film was coming out. So way back when, everyone knows Crazy Rich Asians. And I had said to my minders at the Milken Institute, I have an idea. I want to do something on inequality in Asia. And colleagues then were about, let's do something with, I don't know, big investment banks, and we'll get your head of private banking. And I said, no, I have a different idea. I want to look at inequality in Asia through a book I just read, which was amazing, a huge hit, written by this guy named Kevin Kwan. And they're like, well, if you can get him, maybe we'll give you a little room at the end of that, the hallway out there. And then how does one find a famous person? This is the power of the Philippines. So I said to a friend of the Philippines, who I think had hosted a dinner for you, hey, you threw a dinner for Kevin. I want to meet him and invite him to here. And so it was through a Filipino connection that I think I first met you way back when.
Literally at a party with a bunch of crazy rich Asians.
Which maybe some are even in the book,
and
as I recall.
And someone, I think, handed me a phone, and that was the first time I met you. So
yep. Yeah.
Thank you all for being here, Curtis's fans. It's really a pleasure.
Way back when, let's say 6 years ago, 2019, our Milken Institute theme was navigating a world in transition. And we described that session as a conversation about super rich Asian families, the explosion of private wealth in the region. As well, we were talking about your upcoming film and the best-selling book that started it all, Crazy Rich Asians. Actually, by then, all 3 of your books in the first trilogy had come out. So Crazy Rich Asians, 2013, China Rich Girlfriend, 2015, and Rich People Problems, 2017, which some people have already sent me questions to ask Kevin. And one was, where's the second movie? So we're going to talk about that. So we're also going to talk about, of course, your 2 most recent books, Sex and Vanity, which helped me get through the pandemic, came out in 2020. And then, of course, the very most recent one, and you haven't buy your copy next door, and Kevin will sign it later, Lies and Weddings. So we're going to go through all that. But really, I wanted to begin first to focus on this book, Lies and Weddings, and start by just asking you, don't give away the ending, but tell us about this book. What is it about? How did you get to this story? Kevin.
I guess the easiest way to say it is this is Succession meets Downton Abbey meets White Lotus. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just, it's a fun romp into the world of the 0.1%. But this time, I love just flipping the old-fashioned stories on the head, right? So it was inspired initially by a Victorian story, Dr. Thorne, by Anthony Trollope, who was in his day the best-selling author in the world. And he was paid by the page. So he wrote an 800-page book. I kept mine much shorter, but I wanted to upend all the stereotypes, right? So I have Asians in England, right? I have a biracial family where you have a duke who is married, a beautiful Hong Kong supermodel, and they have a half-Asian son. But the conceit is that they have now lost their family fortune. Barings might have been involved. I don't know. But, through generations, and this is what you see over and over again, right? Like the fortunes in England, the dynastic fortunes, some of them are 18 centuries old. But this time, the boy has to find the rich girl. And the mom really is trying to land him this amazing, kick-ass Chinese VC, amazing, finance guru that's a great lady.
I read it last year. It's in paperback too, now, right?
It is just about to hit paperback.
Buy it in hard copy. But your books also remind me a little bit of like James Bond films, meaning that the destination is also a star. You know, James Bond, he's always in those amazing exotic places. So Sex and Vanity, they're in Capri. This, of course, they're in beautiful Hawaii. And we just spent time with the governor, and so we're hoping this book will be adapted and filmed there also. But I was struck when we put together a list of authors. You know, we've always had authors come to the Milken Institute Global Conference, but this is the very first time we've really dedicated a specific room, and I think we have 12 or 13 authors, but only one is a fiction author, which is you. And I thought, why is that? Are they just humoring me? It's because you can deliver Kevin Kwan.
Well, they think it's fiction, but is it really?
That's what I wanted to ask you. It's almost like, you know, I don't know if you all remember, like, I don't know, in high school, for those who went to high school, they make you read these books, right? And I always remember they made us read Charles Dickens, which is like thick. But the commentary then was actually, maybe he was paid by the page too. It was kind of like in installments. But it was also social commentary. It was about the issues of the day, labor issues, you know, in England. And for me, when I read these books in a ways, it's also about the issues that the Milken Institute often addresses. You know, intergenerational wealth, inequality, race. Is that intentional? So when you write a story, you know, you're writing a very entertaining story, but it's also a way to make very accessible some of these issues.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do, really, is to really, you know, lure you in with the honeypot of a fun James Bond story. But really, you know, as you laugh, hopefully you can really go deeper into the actual issues that we're talking about.
Yeah.
In the books, you know.
Your last two books, we're getting a little bit serious now, did have, I don't know, what's the politically correct, biracial, half Asian characters in it. How do you do your research? You know, what is the writing process now as you've got the storyline? Tell us, how do you sit down? Does a book take 2 years, 6 months, 3 years? What is the process by which you turn that idea into something very, you know, approachable and realistic?
Yeah, this one took 3 years because the first year I had writer's block, basically. Was trying to write, not really successful. Then I went to Hawaii, and suddenly, you know, like the lava exploding, the inspiration came. And I was writing a chapter a day for 6 weeks. So I stayed in Hawaii, and I kept on, you know, going from Airbnb to Airbnb, trying to find a place, until finally there were no places left to stay. It was high season, and I had to leave and come back to LA. But yeah, it's just, you know, there was so much inspiration, but so much of it is just based on observation, really. So I come from a family where I have a lot of biracial cousins, right, and friends. So it's like I've always seen, like, we are such a global culture now. Asians have moved around the world. They've immigrated. They've intermarried in local cultures around the world. And how do those people that straddle two cultures cope with their lives, right? And I think it's so exciting. It presents so much opportunity when you are innately, you know, you understand two cultures so well. And hopefully that's, you know, serves the characters well and serves the world well too.
How much do you draw upon your family, heritage, your friends? You know, I think people are always asking, is that a real person? Is that like Auntie Jane?
Even
Kevin,
yesterday, someone cornered me. I don't know if she's in the room, but there she is. Yeah, she's like,
from Malaysia. Where? Singapore. Yeah. How did you
sign
answer
an
her?
NDA? I'll make you sign an NDA. But you know, there's no one character that's someone. You know, it's an amalgam of different people and experiences and people I've met, people I know, people I might be related to. You know, and you know, I'm not here to like expose secrets or scandals. I'm here to, you know, tell stories that amuse but also make people think. And you do that by pulling from the authenticity of real people. I find.
So maybe your relatives are halfway in there.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, this is actually still, even though people don't
write what you know. That's what my professor told me in school, right?
So absolutely. And you know your friends and relatives. This is actually still, even though people don't celebrate it as much, it seems, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander month. So happy. And what AA and HPI, but just happy Asian American month. And so for me, I remember when the first book came out, and then the blockbuster movie, and there was some criticism too about, you know, you're helping us correct stereotypes. Like, wow, there's like a handsome Asian guy, but then, oh, there's no South Asians. And I remember in one of your interviews, you said, well, when it's fiction, but in this storyline, they weren't principal characters. How do you feel about that issue? Do you feel part of what you're doing is helping address stereotypes of Asians? And then what about this notion now? Well, you've created maybe a positive one, but you've created a new stereotype. I'm no longer just the engineer or the violin player. Now I'm crazy rich. So what about this issue of stereotypes? Because sometimes people really don't know Asians. They know your books.
Well, you try to tell stories about multi-dimensional characters, and that hopefully breaks the stereotypes, right? The title might be called Crazy Rich Asians or Rich People Problems, but when you get to know these characters one by one, hopefully they are multifaceted, and hopefully you see them and the issues that they have, the trauma that they suffer from, what are their weak points, what are their good points. And that's how I think you break stereotypes, when you get to know people of different races, different creeds, and get to know them as people and become friends with them,
Is there something
or love them.
Intentional about this when you write, or no, you just write and then versus
it's
I'm going to have
it's absolutely
I'm an advocate,
intentional.
so I'm going
it is
to
absolutely intentional. I mean, the whole reason I began writing in the first place these books was because I would go to Barnes and Noble, in suburban Texas, and there was not a single book of fiction set in contemporary Asia. There were all these amazing books, historic, stories set in Shanghai during the war or ancient China, but to me, no one was portraying the Asia I knew, right? This amazing region that has grown and boomed for the last 40 years. What are the stories of these people who have to reckon with so much massive change so quickly, and then you have the generational cultures and the traditions that clash with modern life. Like, how do you look at that? And so I wanted to tell those stories very intentionally.
Has technology helped you in telling these stories as we think through stereotypes or correcting stereotypes?
Well, AI wrote all this book, so
that's part. There's no great Milken panel without Chris Tucker showing up. I told him to come. Chris Tucker, for those guys, is in our audience. Yeah. But there's no panel, it seemed like here, that they don't talk about AI.
Yeah.
Or the
Sorry, I had to bring it up. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, how has tech helped you, influenced you? A couple of your books, like a key plot element is like drones or wireless, mics.
I try to bring out the James Bond gadgets to interfere with the lives of these characters, because these characters, in a very real way, are using the most state-of-the-art technology, security systems, whatever it is. But it sometimes causes really big problems to their lives. The equivalent of a hot mic, right? Like, what happens when you have this amazing sound system that goes haywire in the middle of a Hawaii wedding? Sure. And people overhear your most intimate conversations, right? Yeah. So in the simplest
Don't give away
way,
too much.
No, yeah. But
hey, have you used AI? Have you used it?
It's funny. I used ChatGPT to write one paragraph that I use as a footnote. It's part of a joke, and it was really amusing. And this was, of course, 3 years ago, when AI was still, in its teething period. But it was already very scary what came out of ChatGPT when I asked them to write a paragraph in the voice of Kevin Kwan.
I'm actually going to go to that page.
Okay.
And we didn't rehearse this, but I'm not going to read it. I know it was like a PG kind of thing. I don't know. I keep mine G rated.
Got it.
But for those of you who have read the book or haven't read, I'm going to just read one little passage from you, which is on page, 196. And so the setting, this is from Kevin's latest, Lies and Weddings, is some big fancy, destination wedding dinner in Marrakesh. So imagine this amazing Marrakesh, Morocco scene. The wedding party invite says, "Rock the Casbah." Well, it's a welcome party celebrating the nuptials of Amanda and Christian. So all these famous, amazing people here. And it says, here before him, they're talking about the people there, here before him was the next generation, you might think this is Milken, of tech savants, financial gurus, thought leaders, and visionary entrepreneurs, and in between bites of seafood, I don't know how to pronounce it, Bastilla, chicken roasted with preserved lemons, and olives, lamb tagine, and couscous, they were humble bragging about how each of them came to be invited to this ultra-exclusive wedding. One person says, I'm the CFO of a family office in New York, and we have a wonderful relationship with the Radford Family Office in Sydney. So for those of you, from family offices, that's you. But it gets better. And the next line, well, me, I'm ex-Meta, ex-McKinsey, ex-Tesla, ex-Twitter. And I was on a panel with Amanda at the Milken conference.
Ultimate bragging rights,
So
right?
tell me about that line. Where'd that come from, Kevin?
I don't know.
But we do love how you integrate kind of things you do, people you know, into your stories.
And I actually literally heard someone say a very similar line like that. I'm ex this, and it's like, that's how you introduce yourself, by all your failed jobs, like.
As part of my own personal mission to make America read again, or make the world read again, you're a big part of it. I think Crazy Rich Asians is 40 languages, 50 languages. One of my colleagues is looking for a Kazakh edition. But the reality in our world sometimes is people only read the book after they see the film, or after they see, but they're still reading. Maybe some of you in this room haven't even read the book, but you've seen the movie 10 times.
The books are really different.
There's
the books
so
go way
much
deeper.
better, deeper, robust. They make you laugh many times more because of all your footnotes. But a couple people, including in this room, we have a terrific program at Milken called the Milken Scholars Program. And these are just great people moving up in their careers that the Milken Institute, the Family Foundation, supports as they go to college. And one of them said, can you ask him about what happened to the second movie? And so moving from this book back to Crazy Rich Asians, let's talk about some of the news we're seeing on Crazy Rich Asians. So what happened to the second movie?
The world keeps spinning, right? And in just the luck of the draw, right after Crazy Rich Asians came out in 2018, Warner Brothers was bought by AT&T. And so a whole new team, a whole new C-suite had to get to know the business and get to know projects. And they're like, oh, here's a movie that made $500 million. Maybe we should greenlight a sequel. So they did. And so we began the process of developing. And then in the middle of that, they got sold again to Discover, right? Discovery. So then a whole new, so it's like over and over again, there were new people that needed, and of course, the minute they saw it, they were like, let's do this, right? But I think we were, number one, kind of, stymied by just the corporate nature of what happens when companies have to change and new management has to change. And then the pandemic happened, right? And then the writer's strike happened. So like on and on and on, we've had, a few speed bumps, but all those are gone now, right? We are now doing...
So it's happening.
It's happening
and
on
what is
so
happening?
many fronts.
A movie?
I
saw a story on a TV series.
We're working
What's
on
happening?
spin-off movies from the Crazy Rich Asians franchise.
Okay.
Right? We're also working on a trilogy, TV series, premium series on HBO Max, which will be based on the first 3 books. And then maybe, to me, the most exciting of all, Crazy Rich Asians, the Broadway musical.
Well, tell us about that.
Yeah.
I saw Michelle Yeoh singing in Wicked, so
she's
ready.
rehearsing. She's rehearsing like crazy, right? Yeah. I hope she's rehearsing like crazy.
Michelle, are you watching this?
Exactly.
Tell us about the musical. What is that?
It's actually been in development for 6 years now. We weren't really allowed to talk about it, but then last year when we really saw the music finally come together and the lyrics, and we're like, wow, this is real. This is people. We did little like quick read-throughs, and people were crying in conference rooms, and we're like, okay, I think we really have a musical here. And that's when, we officially announced it. And John Chu is going to be the genius behind directing his first Broadway musical.
Wow.
And so it's very, very exciting. The Broadway process from book to Broadway is a 10-year process because it just takes so long to write the lyrics, write the story, stage it, choreograph it, and then theaters. There's only, I think, like 35 theaters on Broadway. So the real estate of, you have to wait for another show to move or retire or fail before you can get a theater. So, but it's all in the works in the next couple of years, and it's super exciting.
And so when do we expect that? The year after this, or 2 years, or 3 years?
I mean, I never want to predict, and I'm not allowed to predict, but in the next couple of years, hopefully. It's speeding along in the most beautiful way. So, and John, now that he's finally almost done editing Wicked 2, he can really focus on that, and he's so excited too.
Wow.
And as am I. So it's
Hey,
Yeah.
it seems like it's a race. Which project will we, the audience, get to see next? Back to Crazy Rich Asians. I saw, I think on Instagram because I follow him. I saw Henry Golding, who's been one of our speakers, also was saying, "I'm meeting with how do you pronounce it? Gemma. We're together in London. We're thinking about the storyline, or what was that? Was that for the TV series or a film, or what was that all about?"
Henry's a naughty boy. He really wasn't supposed to leak anything, but I think so. But, he's excited. They're all excited to really get back to the story and get back to the characters.
But that was
they know
about
so
the
well.
TV series or a film?
We'll see.
No, you're not answering me.
We'll see. This is on video, right? So I can't. I've signed too many NDAs.
Okay, but you mentioned that there was work on a movie.
Yes.
And that there's, I think it was Variety or something.
Yeah.
It's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Is it the same?
The stars will definitely come in and out of
but is
the
it
TV show.
Is it, trying to get some news here, those of you from Variety.
Yeah.
So is it the same stars?
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, hopefully.
They've all
if they're,
signed.
yesterday I saw Lisa Liu.
Yes.
So Lisa Liu plays the Grandma Shang-Chi, and she is 98 years old. And yesterday, way overdue, she finally got her Hollywood Walk of Fame star.
Shout out to Lisa Liu.
Amazing. Her first movie was in 1959.
Oh my God! Wow.
And then one of her most recent movies is Crazy Rich Asians. She's 98 years old, and
You better make these films soon. Not that she won't live to 100.
We're going to knock on wood, but she said to me, when are we going to do this? Right? And she's 98, and, I pray to be as healthy and vibrant and sharp and physically active as she is.
Yeah.
So, they're all excited, and we're excited to really go back and really capture them and tell these stories. And have actually more than an hour and 45 minutes to tell them. To do multi-season series is my dream.
We've been blessed at the Milken Institute. First you, then sitting in the front row over here, John Panatti, who was driving on the business side producer force behind Crazy Rich Asians. We've had Michelle Yeoh join us. We've had Henry Golding join us. We've had Adele Lim, who worked on the screenplay, join us. So we're relying on all of you to get us the rest of them.
It's all on him, really. So just talk to the man over here. Yeah.
So is Adele involved, or there's new teams coming in for the writing side? It's all about writing too.
Yeah, Adele is show running and sort of co-writing, and I've been working with her and the team. There's a whole amazing development team of some of the best people in the business. They've really finally all come together, and hopefully we'll make amazing must-see TV.
Absolutely. Those first three books, are part of what we call the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy. This book, Lies and Weddings, and the one that came out before, Sex and Vanity, I've seen you describe it as another trilogy. What did you mean by it? Because the characters are different.
The characters are different,
the trilogy, and how do you see the next book, but these first two books fitting together in a trilogy?
Crazy Rich Asians, that trilogy was all about Asians in Asia. And then these new books have been about Asians outside of Asia, Asians in the West. Because I really wanted to see that collision of East and West and what happens, right, in these worlds when people have to intermarry and, become partnerships in many different ways and what happens.
Okay. In the book that before this one, it's called
Sex and Vanity.
Sex and Vanity too. I remember it's in Capri, but it moves around a little bit.
Capri and the Hamptons.
Tell us about that and what's happening with that. Is it going to be a movie? I think I read something way back when that also someone had bought it.
Yeah, that's with Sony. And we've been developing it for a couple of years now, and it's, hopefully at that stage where, we're ready to make things happen.
Right. So you're looking at John Panatti.
I'm looking at John Panatti. But once again,
he's policing you as to what you can say
exactly.
or you can't
There's
say.
so much I can. But there's so many talented people who are excited and who are attached, who are involved. Right.
So is that it's already been cast, or you're looking for people?
I'm not allowed to say. Yeah.
You're not allowed to say.
Not allowed to say. I don't want to. Sorry. Yeah.
I understand.
And that story was inspired by A Room with a View.
Yes.
If you remember that great movie and book, A Room with a View, this is sort of my retelling it in a modern way with Asian characters, dynamic Asian families, and Capri and the Hamptons.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
And then Lies and Weddings, this was just bought too to be turned into a film. And who bought that, and what's the status of that?
I am not allowed to say officially. Yeah,
You're not even allowed to say who bought it?
I can't. Yeah, but a
Really?
major
I feel
studio.
I read it in Variety.
Maybe someone leaked it, but it's not going to come from me on live TV.
Okay,
So,
all right.
but a major studio has bought it. Amazing. You know, we've been actually interviewing screenwriters just this week.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
I think there's a pent up demand, right? Hollywood is really seeing they need rom-coms. They need amazing content that's not $400 million to produce. And, you know, these movies in relatively small budgets can produce enormous returns that pay off for years and years and years. You know, Crazy Rich Asians is still, I think, the #1 screened movies on airplanes around the world, you know. So, like, every week someone sends me a screenshot of, like, look who's watching TV next to me, you know, on a plane. So, you know, this is what people want, right? People want fun entertainment that's rooted in story and character, and they want diversity. They really want it. That's what I see.
You know, we really have you and the whole team, Asians and honorary Asians like John, to produce this kind of content. You know, before we open up to audience questions, I want to ask you a couple quick questions. And one, as you think about the content that you enjoy, that you read and watch, it doesn't have to be Asian, but is there like an unnoticed book or author or film that you want to suggest to people, you know, watch this too or read this too?
Well, most recently, I've been reading that book about the destruction of Credit Suisse. You know, Duncan Maven, I think, is the author, and it's just a fascinating history into Credit Suisse and how it started out as this private bank 300 years ago and all the way to now.
Sure.
You know, where it's been absorbed by UBS, and so you see within these stories, it's all about the characters, the different stakeholders, the different CEOs through 200 years. And what they did to survive, and then ultimately not survive.
Sure,
that's a great book. You know, I'm really loving Sinners. Sinners. You know, I saw it in the theater, and it blew me away. It blew me away, and it gives me so much hope that movie, you know, with a primarily black cast, and two really kick-ass Asians, you know, can be the #1 movie in America 4 weeks in a row. That tells me this is what people want. You know what I mean? So,
you know, those of you, I paid to see it twice because I saw it and I got to see it in IMAX. And those of you who haven't seen it, I mean, you really must. And for me, what was great about that film, sometimes even like our conversation or book, you learn something too. That in our American history, we had, you know, Chinese American
in
grocery
the South.
people in the South. And I watched the documentary. I asked you about research earlier. I watched one of the I think it's Dali Lee, I can't remember, but it was a documentary made about like Chinese people in the South, and they're like totally Southern accents. And you know, railroads were already built, but they became merchants. And in the movie, you know, one half of the couple works on like the black street, one works on the white. Because you're Asian, are you black or are you white? And for me,
and they're the only ones that could work both sides of the streets.
I mean,
that was very deeply symbolic.
This is
and
America too. And there is, I think she's part Filipino, Haley Steinfeld. She has a critical role, and there was a line in the movie because she's operating in black world, white world, where someone says to her, "What are you?" And she says, "Well, I'm a human." But she knows, and then she talks about, am I black or am I white? But I get that question, you know, what are you? Or more politely, but still kind of weird. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Virginia. No, where are you really from? Right? And so we live this through 100 years on film and on stage. So the work that you're doing hopefully helps people think through, wow, there's like Chinese from Virginia or from Mississippi.
I'm from Houston.
And from Houston.
You know.
So congratulations there. When we had Henry Golding on stage, this was a more fun question. We said, what was your favorite Asian comfort food? Did you have one? Do you have one? Not really.
Oh, absolutely.
Which one?
Yeah, noodles.
What kind of noodles?
Always. Actually, I like a good Hokkien chami.
Good.
You know, so that is just a great, just a great thick brown gravy, egg, all of it. You know,
a good answer because Henry said bakute. You know, it's like ribs.
Yeah.
And then he said, but I have to clarify, it's Klang Valley. A specific Klang. Just Klang bakute.
Yeah.
And it went viral. That wow, he's really not just making it up. He actually knows the distinction. But even those little things, it's sometimes food. You know, it's like K-pop, K-beauty, now K-drama, K-food, that helps people understand another culture.
It's their entry point into appreciating a different culture. You know,
Absolutely.
food, drink.
Hey, we
books.
have about 15 minutes that we saved for audience questions. You're not Mike, so I'm going to have you say it, and I'll probably repeat the question. But if you don't have questions, I'll just be chatting away with Kevin. And I'm going to let Kevin pick the person.
Oh, gosh.
And all. So, Kevin, go for it.
The first person that stuck up their hand right here. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And before it became a movie. And I currently live in Singapore. My family lives in Houston, so it's really relatable.
Wow.
And your story and depictions are very vivid. It's a sharp satire, and an anthropological lens in which you really display wealth in a different way. So how do you balance that? You know, where you make the characters and movie very relatable to people who cannot really believe in this extravagant type of wealth and realistic lifestyle, rather than making it just voyeuristic. So what are your thoughts?
Kevin, before you answer, thank you, Tiana, who's a member of our Milken Young Leaders. I'm supposed to repeat the question, and I already forgot half of it. So we're going to keep it shorter, Tiana. But basically, Tiana noted that she lives in Singapore, read your book before she came to Singapore, and learned all the slang words because they're all in your book. But she's asking about that balance between are we like voyeurs, or you know, how as you write these books for people, what are you thinking, and how do we get across to people that there's some real, like we were talking about, real meaning. There's a real story to this versus let's look at what those crazy rich people do. I don't know if I summed it up, but Kevin, go for it.
Thank you. You set the stage, right? You set the chessboard with a beautiful setting, amazing food. But beyond that, it's really the people and the stories that connect, right? So you see that even these people with these incredible generational wealth have very, very everyday problems. You know, we all want love. We all want acceptance. We all want our mothers not to yell at us, right? So that, I think when you really search for that authentic truth, that's where the connections are made.
Thank you. You said a lot changed from the book. Hey, did we call on you, Chris? did Kevin pick you, Chris?
What's your name over there?
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
No,
Martin Lawrence. No,
yeah.
You said a lot changes from the book to the script.
Yeah.
Was it comedy in your book? Because I didn't read the book.
Yeah.
But I watched the movie a lot of times.
Happy to get you a copy, by the way.
The book was it kind of like serious, or you had comedy in there already?
Yeah. There was always.
Wait. Can you? I'll repeat the question. You can repeat the question.
Because I
so. Chris Tucker, who is a big Milken Institute fan, and we love Chris, had asked, you know, the transition from the book to the movie. Chris has seen the movie many times, and he's about to buy the book and read it on the plane wherever he's going. But Chris said, you know, the movies, it's a romantic comedy. It's kind of funny. And he's asking about, what about in the book, you know, what translated, what didn't translate, Kevin?
Well, the book is a 500-page book with like 20 major characters, maybe more. So it's about a whole it's a family saga. You know, it's dynasty on steroids in Asia, basically, right? And we had to really make some important decisions of which stories we wanted to tell. And I didn't want to make that decision, so I left it to some really smart people. And we made a beautiful rom-com, you know, which was already in the book, but that was just one part of the book. You know, the book has a lot more tragedy. It's a little darker. I think it's funnier too, actually, than the rom-com, but in a much more evil kind of way. You know, I don't know if I answered you, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is true. Where it is funny parts of the book, the footnotes and things.
But it's definitely darker.
But then there's some serious things, almost like I was saying with Sinners. There's some serious stuff in that film beyond being a great vampire movie, right? There's some interesting things there. I'm going to do just one more plug for Chris. You know, I run into him every year here. And then, I don't know if you get this, but now I'm old, but I used to get, you look like Jackie Chan. And I'm like, I don't know, or can I look like the young Jackie Chan? And so I said to Chris, could you tape like a 1-minute thing that's, and he did, and he taped, I know Jackie Chan. This guy does not look like Jackie Chan. And I use it whenever someone sends me a tweet, you look like Jackie Chan. I'll probably get it after this, you look like Jackie Chan. But I remember, I think last year.
Jackie's much more handsome, right? He opened that up.
But I do remember at one of my sessions I did on Asian storytelling, there was a poll someone puts out. It's like, do you know any like Asian Americans? And I think number one answer was, I don't know. Number two was Bruce Lee, who's like been dead for a long time. Number three,
years,
I think, was Jackie Chan, who's like from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we're so used, to be honest, to knowing Asians. But so many people don't. And so that's where your book is great, too, and your films and adaptations. Hopefully they see the diversity of Asians. Pick someone else.
Someone from the back. Yeah, you, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm coming from DC, where there's kind of a big DEI backlash, and anything that's not white is DEI. So when we're talking about just expanding the storytelling, where you see sinners making tons of money and everyone's going to see it, that everyone is reading your books and watching your movies, how do we kind of keep the momentum of making sure these stories still get out there in this kind of climate?
I think it's important.
Wait. I have to repeat it for the camera. I'll try and sum it up again. So right now, the person who asked the question, who I know, said that in DC there's been a bit of a backlash against DEI. How do you keep up the momentum given that environment to get these stories out to people?
You support the creators. You support the storytellers, the actors, the filmmakers, the dancers, choreographers who are trying to create work, because I think culture and the preservation of culture is vital to our society, right? Now more than ever. But I'm hopeful because, when I go on tours, I see every color of the rainbow, right? I see houses. I go to Miami. My venues are packed with Cuban ladies that read my books, right? I go to Oklahoma. There's guys that work on farms, I was at a signing and I was signing a book for the woman and she goes, it's for Bob. I was like, oh, who's Bob? She's like, Bob is here. He's my husband, but he's too shy to talk to you. But he's the super fan, so it's amazing to just see wherever I go. People want these stories. Diversity is not going away. The long arc of the future is we are all in this together.
I would add, this is a Milken event, money talks. And then ultimately, if it sells, financing will come. But we did a panel, I think, with Janet Yang, the head of the Academy, Daniel Day Kim, successful actor, Eric Nam, a singer, and Padma Lakshmi. And the theme of that panel came back to they could not, or it was a struggle to get financing for their next project. Pre all this for or against DEI. And they said, Hollywood or whoever, would finance what they had already done. So Padma, I'll finance your next cooking show. Daniel, they came, I'll finance whatever that movie was that you were successful at. But they wouldn't take risk when they wanted to do something different. And so their message to all of our big rich people in this audience was, so you need to back production companies so that Asians or, African Americans, whoever, you can take control of the storytelling. You're not waiting for someone outside to say, okay, I approve it. And of course, we focus so much on these amazing stars, but we also need to focus on the people who are like at the office approving things, the money people. The degree that you are showing you're making so much money on books, on films, on TV, and maybe now a Broadway musical, then money will come. But I think money is key in terms of answering the question.
And it truly began with amazing, brave investors, right? And we really structured it like a truly disruptive technology deal. Like this was a startup, this whole venture, beginning with the book to film. And thankfully we met amazing visionary investors who believed in the vision and took the risk, right? And I feel like when you take a risk, it, more often than not, pays off big time. So,
Next question.
yes.
Can I ask you about writer's block? How did you get over it? And can you teach George R. R. Martin to get over it?
Wait, so the question was about writing block. How do you get over a writing block? And if those of you who are waiting for the next Game of Thrones book, the question was, can you help some other authors get over their writing block?
You know, I really feel for George, right? Because he, you know, with success comes responsibility. And he is an empire now. And there's so many things he has to do beyond writing a book. And it's truly distracting. You know, I believe he has a theater, he has a railway line. You know, he does so much to support his local community. And he has to write a book. And he also is rich, and that's a problem because the motivation is kind of gone in a way. So I really feel for him. But you know, for me, I feel like there's so many more stories I want to tell, right? So I have a plethora of stuff I want to do. There's just not enough time and energy for me. But I don't actually believe in writer's block. I think you know, you just have to get the job done. You know, when we go into an office and work, we have to do it every day. And if you want to be a serious writer, you got to write, basically. Probably, yeah.
The reaction to that was, that's very Asian of you. Just get it done.
Hello. Yeah.
How involved are you with casting, and are you police? Or if you don't like something, do you have the power to say, you know, this isn't, can you talk to the actors? Can you talk to your director and say, I really, like, how strong is your vision in the actual finished product?
In past projects, like
So
Crazy
question,
yeah.
just to repeat it, question was, how involved are you in the casting? So when one of your books is adopted into a film, what if you don't like it? You know, what is that process?
I've been very, very lucky in that I was uniquely able to be involved in a way I don't think any other author has in the history of film, where I was really part of the team from day one and really was, you know, involved in every major decision for Crazy Rich Asians, because I felt like if we get a chance to do this, if we get to make a movie with an all Asian cast for the first time in 25 years, we have to get it right. And they need me to get it right because I'm the entry point into this world. I know these characters, I know this world, I have the access to it, and I help them do that. So yeah, every single person that was cast was a group decision, but I was very much involved, and you know, several of the stars I brought to them and said, hey, check out this video of this actress, you know, that I didn't know about, stuff like that. So it was you know, it's a team, but I was very happy to be part of the team. Yeah.
I'm going to call on, yeah. So this is John Panatti with a comment, who's producer extraordinaire.
I have a comment. Kevin walks the walk. So this is very meaningful to get new things going, to the idea he has many more stories in his head. But he was so confident that when the book came out and Hollywood didn't really know what to do with it, I met him and he's like, don't even pay me, give me $1. And we made a deal for $1 because he was so sure the world needed this story. And it worked. That was how the book was sold. And in terms of involvement in casting, so there was never an idea that we would just do something. I'm like, did you call Kevin? I haven't called him yet. I'm afraid to call him. But he would have to weigh in, and I don't want you to blush, but literally every decision, like casting, obviously director, and on and on. So that's a guy who walks the walk.
I'll just sum that up for the video. I said Kevin really walks the walk. He was so confident in his content and that the world, the country wants this content that he said, you know, really don't pay me. I'll take $1 because I know I'm going to make gazillions afterwards. You can add that part. And then he was involved throughout, but in a good way where people weren't afraid to say, oh, you got to ask Kevin about this. And John said, don't blush. But really, I think even for me, I've benefited from you. Just doing a whole series of things on what we at the Milken Institute call the creative economy, creative content. This can be, you know, people color-led or Asian-led, and it works and all. There was one last question, and then we're going to wrap, and then actually Kevin's going to sneak out and do a book signing next door. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, you've teased a little bit about other stories in your head. So I'm curious about if you could tell us a little bit about what
Oh wait, I'm going to Rush Hour 4. Remember that? That was our deal, right?
That's a deal. Yeah. Him, I don't, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Wait.
Yeah.
The question was, what are you working on now? What's not just these books, or the next book. Because I can't remember. Could you tell me something? I'm like, am I supposed to know that? 'Cause you're doing some really interesting things. I hope you can share.
Yeah.
And the most that's Nelman. So influential. Crypto, fintech. Said, can't you put Curtis in one of your films, John Panatti, and all? But the serious one.
If
what are
he
you working on right
okays it,
now?
we'll make it happen.
All right. But what are you working on right now?
There's so many things brewing that are amazing that are on the plate. I wrote an original screenplay, basically, over the pandemic. And now we're trying to make it into a movie. I'm doing it with the producer, Lawrence Bender, and hopefully, filming in the Philippines. And so I'm learning how to produce, which I don't think I ever want to do again. I don't know how he does it. I'm really bad at asking people for money. And so I'm going to go back to just writing, really. But it's been an amazing learning curve and learning experience to see how the candy really gets made on the financial side, because I've always been fascinated by finance. I come from a banking family, right? So I wanted to see, how do you really structure the deals of putting together financing for a movie and making things happen. So that's been personally very fascinating for me, and learning how to really move that rock up the hill. And you really see that every movie that gets made is practically a miracle, truly. You can have all the right players involved, but for the movie to actually go greenlight and make a red carpet, it takes a miracle. So I have nothing but renewed admiration for the industry, for the people in it, for the actors, for the producers. It's pretty amazing. And I'm also trying to cook up a new book. I have a whole new book idea that's radically different. And I'm just it's brewing now, but I'm trying to get to a place where I can take some time off, maybe go to Hawaii and start writing again. So thank you.
There's such a diversity of Asian content. Here we're always focused on East Asia, Southeast Asia, but there was so much interest these 2 days over South Asia. Do you see yourself doing something with the Indian subcontinent or Central Asia, or each trilogy is a little bit different?
I would love to. I would love to collaborate with the right people, because I think you need people who are there, who know the culture authentically, right? So I would love to help bring something to life.
Yeah. I think we're all rooting for you. Hopefully, those with money out here, you can finance some of this stuff. To close, I would just say that the Milken Institute, one of the things we're going to do this year is, you'll see in Washington the opening of our Milken Center for Advancing the American Dream. Maybe some of you even spotlighted in it. It will be in Washington, but in many ways, you are an example of the American dream, right? From way back from Singapore to Texas.
Truly,
look at you now.
I'm so grateful, right? That life took me here.
Really, again,
you know.
Congratulations. I always end with this like K-pop quote from Kim Taehyung, BTSV, for those of you who know. He always says, don't be trapped in someone else's dream. And I think you've shown, particularly for Asian Americans, like, be an engineer, right? Do what you dream about, and look for role models who don't have to be Asian, to be honest, but look for role models. But you're such a terrific role model. Kevin, thank you for all you do for the Asian American community, for the Milken Institute, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah.